Today, we're excited to welcome Stephen Purry, a trailblazing leader who spearheaded visual effects on Oscar winning blockbusters like Independence Day, Seven, Die Hard, then rose to executive roles at Fox, DreamWorks, and Sony. Now, as the founder of the Suka company, he empowers remote workers to achieve peak focus, productivity, and wellness through innovative tools inspired by yoga. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Tim, I hope we have some fascinating stuff to talk about. Let's go.
Absolutely. So, my first question to you is how did leading high stakes teams in film shape your philosophy and motivating creative talent?
Interesting question in that I have a very strong thesis that we all have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? So that said, people who are typically called creative, it's usually a code word for like they create some sort of art, screenplays, paintings, poetry, sculptures, buildings, things like that, right? But I do think that on a certain level, we all create our lives. Like to understand someone who maybe creates, I'm not a sports guy, but I'm just going to say this, who creates like moves on a basketball court and says like, here's how we're going to choreograph this. In a way, I mean, how different is that than choreographing a ballet? You're like, this is our movement through this three-dimensional space, and hopefully it yields this beautiful result of the thing. So I'm going to say when you say creative people, yes, people normally say, hey, Steve, man, you work with some amazing writers and directors. You work with some great actors as well, right? But I'll say this. I think a lot of people create, and I think everyone has something in them. And the challenge is, how do you get that thing out? So if you're a leader, if you're a team leader, first, I'm going to say foundationally, you have to hire properly, right? If you've hired the wrong people and they just don't give an F about what you're doing, you're never going to get something great out of them, right? So as a leader, you have two things. You have to express your mission. Hey, man, we're here to cure cancer. We're here to build beautiful buildings for, corporations. We're here to, create the next whatever it is. And you have to express the values, right? You got to say, hey, if you're part of this team, this is how we treat each other. This is how we treat our customers. This is how we treat our competitors. So if you do that and someone comes aboard, they're like, hell yeah, I want to cure cancer. And absolutely, that matches my value system about how we treat people, even competitors, right? Then that's step one. And there is no skipping step one. If you skip step one, you're going to feel it in your team. And one bad hire can bring down a team, So let's move forward. I think the thing you're getting at is this, which is, suppose you do have the right team and you are creating something. As I said, whether it's a ballet, a screenplay, a building, a basketball team, whatever, right? You want them to achieve something great. You need to recognize what each of them individually views as the great thing inside them. If you can do that, then you can elicit from them that thing. That will change the course of their life. That will change the course of yours. When every time you hear, to use the basketball thing, a great Michael Jordan or Pippen or whatever talking, they work in like, yeah, and this is how my coach made us a team instead of just a bunch of individual guys running around a court, So I think that's what it is you hire properly and then you recognize in each person, what is the great thing of which they're capable and how do you then draw that out of them? This is your opportunity to do that great thing.
I love how you frame that with drawing it out of them from within. And let's talk about stress when it comes to that environment, because I'm sure
stress. What's that? What is this word of which you speak?
Under tight lines, there's a stress built into it, right? So you're trying to draw out
the obvious. Okay.
So you're trying to draw out the best in folks and get them there, but you also have to beat the timeline. So how do you deal with stress on those types of teams in order to not lead people to burnout?
Okay. So stress, I think, in general is a negative thing. Like just living on cortisol, burning yourself out, you're totally bad. There's a certain amount of stress that is, hey, I'm trying to achieve something. If you don't think that, I don't know, say whoever won the Super Bowl this past year, if you don't think that they were in the gym stressing their muscles to the extent that they could then make that amazing running play or throw the ball all the way through, you're kidding yourself. Like stress is necessary part of achievement. the point at which it crosses over, it becomes negative, right? That's, I think, that threshold you're talking about. And there are things you can do. I know a lot of people who listen to your pod, they are looking to achieve something in their professional life, right? They're probably not, Travis Kelsey or whatever his name is, or Jordan or someone like that, athletes. They're actually professional. They're knowledge workers. They're people who are saying, let me create things with my brain. And by the way, these people find it valuable and they give me money or some other goods for the things that come out of my head, right? So what you're really saying is, for knowledge workers, how do you manage the amount of pressure you put on your brain to produce the great things and, mitigate the risks of going overboard? So you and I and everyone happen to live in a world where gratefully we stand on the shoulders of giants. A lot of smart people have not just researched this, like done studies on people, but they have also proactively said, well, let me go out and test ideas out. And when you think about the research that's been done, yes, we've all heard like the Pomodoro method, for example, right? It is a healthy way of saying your brain needs a break, your body needs a break. And you can do a 25 and 5 cycle. You can do, like, I personally do like 55 and 5 or 55 and 10 kind of thing, because I usually find at the end of 25, I'm in the middle of a thought and it's always a bad place to break. But regardless, I respect the fact that it is hey man, on a regular schedule, you should stand up, go downstairs, get a glass of water, go for a walk, stretch at your desk, do something. Like my back loves it when I stretch every hour or two. Even though I go to yoga every day, it still is just like, hey man, this feels good. Like, don't just sit here for 4 hours straight, banging away and in code. So I think it is about managing it through healthy sort of activities like that. Also, there's a really good Hoopman episode talking about basically brain fuel, right? So in the short day-to-day kind of stress, you recognize that you can't think endlessly. You cannot spend 8 hours in deep concentration on something, and hour 8 is going to be worthwhile. It's very, very rare, right? You deplete essentially your brain fuel, your glucose, and usually after about 90 minutes, 120 minutes, you're starting to have thoughts that maybe are not of the caliber that they were in the first hour. So how do you refresh that? You find the ways to say, okay, you know what? Let's all step away. Let's take a little break. Let's do whatever the thing is we're going to do. Let's think about something else. Over the long term, like if that's very much how is my work today structured so I don't burn out today, right? Then there's also the thing of like, 996. Can you work 9 to 9, 6 days a week and be like, this is amazing? Or is that just the corporation eating you alive, being like, just feed me more fresh bodies, please? Like I need them to live. And that is something where you need to monitor yourself, because I've seen a wide variety of tolerances. Like there are some people with whom I've worked, they do thrive for a long period of time on that. They're like, hey man, I need to be kind of I do my good work when I'm not actually super balanced the way you look at it. Where other people are like, no. Like for example, if I get to yoga at 5 in the morning, my whole day is different. If I start 5 a.m. coding or something like that, my afternoon is not as good. And I do need to find those little breaks. So I'm going to go to the gym right now, go to yoga later, whatever those things are that just regulate it for me. So it is a bit of self-knowledge. A lot of things are take in what the smart people have written and see how they apply to you specifically.
Yeah, the self-awareness I think is huge key on how you manage your body, like you brought up. So
Mm-hmm.
when it came to you personally, and you started out in
Yes.
film, and then you ended up
Mm-hmm.
into tech.
Sort of.
So when did you?
Sort of.
Okay,
Sort
so
of. Let us rewind and I'll give you a little detail that, predates LinkedIn, which is my parents were both engineers at IBM. My dad is a hardware engineer. He has over 50 patents to his name on very large scale integrated circuits, like logic, circuits, CPUs essentially. And my mom was a software engineer. If your mom's like an Olympic ice skater, you probably learned to ice skate when you're little. You know what I mean? So I was a little code monkey, and it was fun. My mom would take me when I was little to like the University Computing Center and stuff, and I get to run jobs with her, and it was just like what we did as a family. Like the way some people would play catch. Oh, my dad was high school baseball player. I always played catch with him. That's how I remember my dad, right? So I remember my mom coding. So I actually fell into film. And this is the forward to the point that you brought up, because I was at USC I was a Watson scholar, so I had a job at IBM whenever I wanted. If I wanted to earn money, they're like, you can come here, be a junior engineer, right? So I was doing that to earn cash. And I happened to be in LA at SC, which arguably is the best cinema TV school, or one of the top two or three in the world. So a lot of your friends are filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, indie filmmakers. You kind of learn that. You go to movies together and listen to it. And while I was there, film went digital. And I, as an engineer, spoke engineer. And I had a creative vocabulary. So I was super lucky, man. Let's not discount the value of luck in my life, where I was in that little intersection of the Venn diagram of like, speak engineer, speak creative. Hey, film is becoming a digital thing in the computer. We can make digital films. Come with us, kid. And that's how I actually got into film. I was producing digital visual effects and titles. I did a whole variety of stuff from like David Fincher's Seven, Jim Cameron's True Lies, De Palma's Carlito's Way, Jim Jarmusch Dead Man, Woody Allen's Sweetland Films, Braveheart and Immortal Beloved with Mel, bunch of stuff. And then did produce the digital effects for Independence Day, which we won the Academy Award for the visual effects, which was super cool, you know. And I mean, there are 100,000 people who are responsible. It was a huge production, but it helps your career. Period. You worked on the visual effects. The film won. It's not going to hurt you, right? So that was how I set up my first company with Roland and Dean, who the director and produced the movie. The three of us set up a company called Centropolis Effects. We did computer generated effects, about 80-person company. We raised about 15 million and sold that 4 years later to Das Werk at a 6x multiple, which was great. And, you know, as one does in their 20s, they think they're smarter and more successful and better looking than they are. When in reality, you know, you're kind of lucky and, you know, that sort of thing. And that was then when I got into film production and then later returned actually to engineering. Just kind of going full circle.
That's amazing how that happens. When you come,
For those playing at home without the the video on, we both just made the
yeah,
whole circle motion on video. So just to really drive that point home, if you didn't get what a
no,
circle is,
and I'm laughing because I find myself making that full circle too. So
you can't help it. It's one of those things. It's like, Tim, what's a goatee? Do you
yeah,
know
I
what a
think it's like
goatee
a
is?
mustache and like a part of a beard. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Ask anyone in your life that speaks English, and they will all gesture to their chin. It's just a guarantee in life. Ask someone what a goatee is, they'll do, you know, it's
Yeah.
just like this thing here. So yes, full
Absolutely.
circle.
So, and not only figuratively making the circle, but literally as well in my own career. And I think it's
True.
interesting how we all kind of go back to that. Some of us quicker than others.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was that driving factor that made you go? You know what? This is where I want to go, or did it just kind of happen by luck or chance? I know you said luck plays a big part in your life, but did you make a conscious effort to
Yes.
go back?
I will tell you, I am the recipient of a lot of good luck, and I don't want to discount that. I know people have often said, like, oh my God, how did you become an EVP here and a vice president at Fox? Blah, blah, blah. And, oh, you ran a company and sold it. Right? I have a lot of friends. I've met a lot of people who've worked very hard. And, you know, sometimes you get tailwinds and it just, you fly faster, and sometimes you hit headwinds. There are a couple of lucky breaks in my life. I'm very grateful for them. I'm very upfront about it. I've also had 2 failed startups. Painful, learned a lot, but, you know, stuff happens. So the answer to your question is, there have been a couple lucky things that fell in my lap. I would like to believe I coupled those with hard work. It's like, ooh, this is an opportunity that just arose. Okay, you know what? Let's make something of this. As opposed to, you know, let's kind of half-ass
Okay.
it.
So when you made the choice to go out of film and back in,
Oh, back
yeah,
into the
back into
startup
the startup
world.
world, how?
And I can tell you why that was Die
Okay,
Hard 5 right there.
so what was it?
That was an awful experience. Straight up, I'll tell you, working at Fox, one of the worst professional experiences of my life.
Okay,
Period. Full stop.
uh,
Yeah.
what made it so bad that you were like, you know what, I need to change?
Um, Without
Mhm.
naming names, I do think that style in an organization comes from the top. You know, the head of the organization can't really micromanage how many pencils are ordered or where the parking spots are, but they sure do infuse the organization with, this is ethically who we are. This is what we will do to achieve our goals. And Man, my friends cautioned me when Fox came calling. I was at DreamWorks. They made me a really attractive offer, like double your salary. Hey, you probably grew up on Die Hard. Do you want to run the Die Hard franchise now? You want to run the Wolverine franchise, stuff like that, right? My friends were right. It was an ethical mismatch. And I was working on Die Hard 5. It was and it continues to be a terrible script, but it was just the back pressure from the studio was it's a franchise, man, make it. Bruce has a window in the schedule. He's going to do it. Just crank it out. Just don't make it expensive, so we don't have a lot of risk. And I was like, am I going to wake up, be like 40 years old, pushing out Die Hard 9, telling my kids, like, hey, daddy's going to go make another bad sequel so we can pay for your college? I mean, I don't know. There are worse jobs. Don't get me wrong. It is not working in the salt mines, and I'm grateful for that. But it's also something where I was like, I hate coming to work every day. One of my litmus tests in my life is if I wake up before my alarm, I'm on the right track. So the mornings I wake up, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let's get this going, And the days when I hear the alarm go, I'm just like, uh, I'm like, this is the wrong job. It was like that. And that's what I thought. What's the only other thing I know how to do, Tim? It's engineering. Go find some problems and see if you can solve them. And I tried twice. I raised 15 million for Centropolis. We sold that. So I was like, okay, cool. Right? I made some money, traveled for a few years, raised 3 million for two startups. Both times we didn't really get to the Series A. It was just kind of like, that's sort of working, sort of not, And I felt embarrassed. A lot of my friends in film were watching. They're like, oh, Puri left to go work in tech. And I was just like, this didn't work. I felt ashamed. I was depressed. It sucked.
So, what helped you get through that period?
Hmm. Well, I'd like to say jokingly, alcohol and drugs, but not really. I'll tell you my process on both of them. When I reached the moment on those two startups, and I said, okay, we're not going to actually realize the vision that we had for this, right? And you have to go talk to your investors and say, hey, we tried as hard as we could. I know the picture I painted of what we're going to do. It just we're at 60,000, monthly actives. We need to be at 100,000, a million. Like we need to be scaling hockey stick kind of stuff, and we're not. So I don't think in good faith I can raise more money because we don't have like some other trick to try. It feels like we have to kind of call this one. And in that moment, it was interesting in that those two startups, every investor was actually way cooler than I thought. Like, what do you want to do next? Like, hey, we worked with you for 2 years. This was great. Not everything works. Startups mostly fail. What do you want to do next? And there was one investor in for $10,000. Of the entire $6 million I lost, right? There was one $10,000 investor who raked me over the coals. I was just like, dude, I'm already super depressed, contrite, embarrassed, ashamed. And he's like, isn't there something else you can try? I mean, I put $10,000 into this. I was just like, I am so sorry, man. This is on me. Ultimately, it's not anyone's fault but mine. I ran the company. I was the founder and CEO, and like, I'll take the blame. But I don't know what else to do. And it was awful, right? So I was like, oh, but I did do this. Both times, I sat with a pad of paper at the end while the wounds were still bleeding, right? Not when you have a rosy-eyed view of like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I was like, in that moment of I want to kill myself, right? I wrote out longhand on a pad of paper, what did I learn? Like, what did I do wrong? And I just want to keep that. Not in a digital file I dictated into Siri, like, oh, hey, I wanted to have to like my hand to old school, like write it on a piece of paper and stare at it and go like, okay. And the first word on both of those pieces of paper was listen. I realized that either members of my community, users or friends or, investors had often given me advice that I thought, well, I'm not really sure if that's really our product. We should, maybe do that, maybe not. And sometimes they were right, or it sounded like they could have been, because sliding doors, you don't actually know what would have happened if you'd turned left instead of right. But some of it was like, you know what? I know what I did didn't work. This is probably worth trying. And now, as we develop, Suka, my current company, the Flow State app, like we have a group chat. Tony and I are in there just asking people like, hey man, what's working? What's not working? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Anyone want an integration with Asana? Okay, cool. We can do that, And Very different mentality than it's not quite build in public, but it's kind of close, way closer than it used to be. So I think that's kind of the big one for me. It was like, I have to make something positive after this negative experience. Let me capture what I learned. And that led me to Suka, which is now a joy, which I love.
That's amazing that you wrote that down. And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, you took like the Clausewitzian approach. I don't know if you know who Clausewitz is. He's a war writer from Germany.
Mhm.
Uh, Lost everything, and he wrote what he learned from all his failures. And it's a great state. So to write out what you learned while you're in your failure state shows one, that you're a leader who can take accountability, integrity, and forward thought. So good on you for
That's
doing
very
that. A lot of
kind of you to
people
say.
don't.
Okay, I'll take that. Sounds like a compliment in the middle of depression. I'm gonna, yeah,
No,
exactly.
that is. I
Thanks,
mean,
Tim.
a lot of people don't necessarily take the time to do that. So good on you
I
for doing
agree.
that.
That is true.
And you hit on something that I was going to ask you about,
Ooh.
which, but I'm not going to get there yet
Yeah.
because we're jumping too far forward.
Ooh. I
So,
like the way you're
so you
pacing
had,
this. Right.
so you had that horrible experience. You moved over. You learned some things. COVID hit, and then you found a new problem to solve.
Mhm.
and and so that is when this hybrid remote work,
Yeah.
and how do we
Became a,
become productive.
yeah. So you're like, Steven, talk about that. Oh, you're subtle. Okay. So here's the thought that may sound a little kooky until you think about it, which is film has been doing remote and hybrid work for like 100 years. You don't call it that. You call it development, prep, post production, stuff like that, because every movie begins with writers writing alone or in their writing partner's living room or in a coffee shop. One script gets some traction, gets some money. You open up a little production office, a couple days a week. People are in there meeting because they need to ask you, like, what does it look like? What are they wearing? Maybe you're trying to get a director or do a rewrite to get Brad Pitt to star in it, right? And then the rest of the week, everyone's off working remotely. Costumers are in costume houses, writers are doing rewrites, and you eventually get to RTO, hopefully, on set day and night for months on end, and then you go back to hybrid and eventually remote. But again, no one really calls it that in film. But as a leader, you know how to lead through each phase and you know how to be an individual contributor in each phase. So that I thought was really interesting because in the pandemic, there were a lot of verticals where it was a shock to the system. It's like, whoa, Zoom is a verb now. Oh, we can't sit under the same fluorescent bulbs every day for 10 hours. Like, how is this going to work? And in film, it's like, here are ways of being accountable. Here are ways of, maintaining focus, blocking distractions, things like that. And, with a buddy of mine, we started, this company to be like, okay, smart people have written about how to do this. How do we make it so simple? It's just like a website with one play button. And that was the genesis of what I do now.
So when you built Suka in mind, it wasn't originally called
Mhm.
Suka, and you had a different name for that.
Correct.
So how did you come up with the new name?
Well, what's interesting is, so a buddy of mine who is an engineer at Groupon, he wanted to do like a mindful to-do list. And he'd asked me about that. And I said, I'm not really to-do lists. I always abandon them. I never really use them that long. So I'm not the guy to figure that out. But he's very persuasive. So we started developing this. He had a baby and he's like, I got to tap out. But I said, you know what? I really would love for this to become a flow state app, like to be more of a mindful, like meditative way of blocking distractions because God knows Laura, my wife, and I have enough friends who work at one of the meta companies or used to work at Twitter. And they're really good. So I was like, I see a future here. Laura, as I, alluded to, she and I met in yoga. When I had the first startup that failed, I had moved to New York for 2 years and just was like hiding out, thinking about life, planning what to do. I was helping a friend with a commercial real estate deal and basically just like trying to make sense of like, what did I do wrong and what do I do next, right? I met Laura. She's the girl on the mat to my left in yoga. It was awesome. So we chatted for a few months, went out. So when we were getting married, we went to Bali, which is a great place to go do yoga on your honeymoon, right? So we heading over there. I knew we had to get a new name while we were in Bali, and I said to Laura, I hope lightning strikes. The universe speaks to me. My unconscious mind bubbles something up. that's cooler than flow state app number 4, or, like distraction blocker 19. That something like Amazon's not called like, bookstore. Nike's not like shoe place. And Laura's like, cool, I hope that works for you. And I said when we got there, do you mind if I speak to a couple of our members? Because we had a bunch of paying members at that point. I was like, I just want to ask them, what's your favorite feature? Right? Maybe that'll seed my unconscious mind, and then over 10 days, something will bubble up, right? So I was like, go for it. I'm going to go to the pool. You do your little Zooms. I will see you at dinner, right? So I talked to 3 people, and I was just like, tell me, is your favorite feature the music? We have like 1,000 hours of flow music. Is it the Pomodoro timers? Is it the task list? Is it the smart assistant that helps you break down your day? Like, what is it you love, right? The third guy, going into the wrap up, hey, Tim, I asked you for 10 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. So let's going to go now. He stopped me and he said, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. I was like, okay, what was the right question? He's like, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I said, well, I mean, we charge like 30 cents a day, just enough to cover like those servers. I don't even collect a paycheck for this. Tony and I do it because we love it. And I was like, okay, so, why do you pay me? And he said, I find I have 2 kinds of days. At 3 o'clock, I can be playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4. Or at 6 o'clock, I can be kind of down on myself and asking, where'd the day go? I was busy, but I didn't get the stuff done. And he's like, I realized the difference is, did I open your app in the morning and just run it in the background to keep me on track? And he's like, so I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. I was like, that is a way better answer than what I was asking for. Thank you. So I go to dinner with Laura. I was like, I met this guy who's like more articulate than I am about what I'm doing, which is weird, right? And yeah, and Laura loved it. She's like, that's really good. And at night we're brushing our teeth, and she looked at me. She goes, in yoga we hear all these Sanskrit terms like, karma and dharma and, prana, your life force and all that. She's like, that dude described you Suka. That feeling when you're in your lane, you're doing what you're meant to do. You're good at it. You're in control of your life, and it feels good. You can do it with ease. She's like, that's what you should call your company. I looked it up on my phone. The Suka company was available as a website. I bought it. We went to bed. That was it. So I run the happiness company.
And with testimonies like that, because with little kids myself, they're not so little now. They're like preteens, but still, they're not going to be young forever. And that time gets away from you. And are you spending the days doing what's valuable and on the things that matter? And so
right.
I love that. But with focusing on things that matter, with your previous horrible experience that you had, now you have your new company. How do you implement flow state within your organization?
Okay, so for those at home who are nodding like, dude, I'm a flow master, I get this. I love you. Keep driving. Keep doing the dishes at home. But for those who are like, I maybe have a passing understanding of flow states, I've heard it. Let me just set the table for a minute so we're all on equal footing, okay? So there was a Hungarian-American psychologist, Vihai Csikszentmihalyi. He died, I think, 4 years ago next month. And he had a thesis. He said, high performers in these different areas, athletes, artists, scientists, they describe these concentrated states they go into in very similar ways. The states where they do the stuff that makes them famous. So he, like Prometheus, wanted to go up to the mountain, steal fire, and bring it down to the rest. He's like, I want to go understand that. After he did his research, he wrote a book called Flow. That is the seminal work on this. That is why we call it a flow state. And he said this, which I thought was beautiful. He's like, the best metaphor I can think of after listening to all of these people is, we're all on the water paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it magnifies your efforts. You move further and faster. And he said, that's what they do. I thought, why not take the things that he wrote and put them all into one website? So there's just a one play button. You didn't have to have, this kind of music here, this kind of mental thing here, this kind of thing. Just one play button. And so that is why I'm such a huge fan of flow states, because my first flow state, I didn't know the term. It was before I had really encountered his work. And I was on a flight from Austin to, where I live now, to San Francisco. And I was illustrating an idea. I wanted to go into Figma and like mock up kind of in my hacky way, an idea for a feature that I was going to show my team the next day. Got on the Alaska, nonstop. Wi-Fi was out. We took off and we landed like 15 minutes later. And I was like, an engine fell off. Something bad happened. We could have maybe made it to Dallas. And I looked down and over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by since I last looked at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what just happened? And my designs were done. Like I didn't have to scramble to go to the hotel room and eat a room service cold whatever and try and finish before tomorrow morning. Like I could call a buddy of mine. I was like, hey man, I'm in SF. I want to have dinner. Like I have a free night. And it was an extraordinary experience. Part of it I realized was there was no Wi-Fi. So there are no Slack messages. There are no WhatsApps to check. There's no doom scrolling. There's no, there were a number of conditions precedent that sort of made this more available. But that feeling of like, Tim, I'm done. Like, you want to have dinner? That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't know what a flow state is. And, some people call it being in the zone. Like there's that Michael Jordan quote about when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball,
Yep.
right? That's what he's talking about, man. You can call it the zone. Everyone has their word for it. But when you've been there and you go, I got my work done faster, it's high quality, and I can be in charge. Like I'm running my day. I have a question for you. I know you've been asking a lot of questions. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you had that end of a day where you're like, oh man, I didn't finish anything. I'll just get up early tomorrow and finish this before I start tomorrow's work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it never really happens.
Exactly. And it's like dominoes during the week. It's like then tomorrow night you tell yourself the same thing about Wednesday, right? And we all tell ourselves that lie. Oh, well, they got away from me, but I'm going to finish early tomorrow, right?
Absolutely.
I had enough of those days where I was like, I'm getting down on myself. Like I'm starting to tell myself a story about like, I suck. Why can't I get my stuff done? What am I doing during the day? And, it's like any recovery program. The first step is admitting you have a problem, man. And I was like, I have a problem. I realize I procrastinate. I get distracted. I get overwhelmed. And that, as it comes back to your question about like, how do you implement flow states? How do you take advantage of flow states in your own life as an IC or as a leader with your team, is recognize the conditions that help you get there. And I'll share these. And by the way, anything smart that I say is basically because we have gratefully come after people who have done a lot of research and we get to, benefit from what they've spent their lives sharing. Okay. So I'm not that smart, but I have read smart people. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi said, one condition is it seems that you have to believe what you're doing is meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get into a flow state when you're like stapling papers or shuffling garbage. It's just like Picasso's creating Guernica, or Jordan's playing in the whatever, right? You have to have, related to that, Mihai said you have to have skills that apply. So it's not asking Michael Jordan to paint.
Right.
Yeah, and it has to be challenging. Like, to use that Michael Jordan thing because I think he's amazing. It's not Michael Jordan doing an exhibition game at his kid's high school with 8th graders. You know what I mean? Like, that's not flow. Flow is you're at the edge of your abilities doing something that is indeed challenging. It's playing in the NBA, against people who are amazing. He's the best in the world. So those things are interesting. He also wrote, he said, it seems like one of the characteristics is you have to be able to get feedback. You have to be able to know how you're doing, right? You're not just pouring energy into a black box. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if it's any good. It is being able to stand back and look at the canvas and go, oh my God, Guernica is shaping up to be the thing that I want it to be. Or we're winning the game or whatever that may be. Or if you're coding, it's just that thing where you go, oh my God, the build worked. Everything, becomes glass-like under your fingers. You're like, this is what I've been trying to get to work. So that said, and by the way, I'll put in a little mention about what we did with Suka is when you work, you have a live productivity graph that you literally get points as you work and you're not distracted, right? So you can kind of like see, oh, okay, cool, I'm working, like connect your phone, you can connect websites. And then should you open a website that's on your do not fly list, you get a little pop-up and it goes, hey, Tim, it seems like Facebook is a distraction. Do you want to close it or do you want to go? And if you go down a distracting path, you lose points. So you can look at the end of your session or even during your session at the curves of your graph and sort of see like, well, Why? And scroll your cursor over, when it went down in minute 25, and you see, oh, that's when I opened YouTube.
Mm.
Gotcha. And I'll tell you something I noticed about myself. I looked at my graphs, and there's often a nice little, oh, I'm working for half an hour. And somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes, there'd be a little dip. And I realized I had a bad habit of like hitting this wall of, I'm just going to open news, or I'm going to do something. And once I saw that repeated, I was like, oh, dude, know thyself. I
Yep.
get it. I need to stand up, go to the bathroom, get water, do something, around that time. That's a moment when I'm not super productive because I need kind of a refresh. So these are interesting things. So if you're a leader, which I know a lot of leaders listen to your pod, or if you're an IC, is you sort of say, hey, I'd like to be doing deep work, as Cal Newport would say, and I want to do great work. And I want to do it where I'm managing my brain, I'm managing my day, not being managed by it. So you can encourage people in this way. And I'll close with one thought, then I want to go back to you and you guide this. But um, some research shows that it does take like 15 to 23 minutes to get into a flow state, right? You don't just sit down and go, I'm in flow. It doesn't really work that way. You kind of need things like the same way music helps lull you into it. If you get interrupted, like in the middle of your session, if I Slack you, I'm like, hey, Tim, could you send me the latest TPS reports real quick? And you've got to go find them and, drop them in the Slack, whatever. It'll take you 15 to 23 minutes to get back into that state where it feels good. You're in the zone doing great work, right?
Right.
So as a leader, something you can do is you can say, hey, what if we agree that each of us has something important to do, more important than returning emails or, returning Slacks? Why don't we block an hour or two each day when we're going to do that? And you can agree with your team. Well, hey, man, from 9 to 11, let's not set silly Zooms with each other and team meetings and customer meetings. Let's have the time be, this is when you do the stuff that hopefully you walk into the staff meeting, you say, hey, man, I thought about this, I designed this, I built this. And everyone goes, dude, Tim, what? That changes the trajectory of what we're doing, as opposed to you walk into the staff meeting and you're like, I've returned all my emails. There's no gold medal for returning all your emails. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you encourage like focus time, if you have a team you trust, because there are some aspects of remote work where leaders are like, I just don't know if I hired the right people. I think they're slacking off. So then you're really afraid to do like, hey, go and do an hour of deep work every day because you're like, are you just sleeping in?
No, that's a great point because one thing that we do as leaders is shape our environments for people to be successful.
Yep.
And
There you
I
go.
don't know a single leader out there who says, I don't want my people to be as productive or as successful as they can be.
Yeah.
And one thing that we can do is control our environment. We talked about how, I'm a dad and I tell my oldest son, who is now graduated college, is now in a master's degree, I'd say, I can't control what you do, but I can control your environment as long as you're in
That
this
is
house,
true.
right?
Yeah.
And the same thing applies for leadership. And I think like the Suka app is a great company that people can check that out on. So when you're listening to this or you're watching this, go ahead and check the descriptions. Everything will be there. And Stephen, if you don't mind, I'll provide your email as well so people could reach out to you directly.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it because if anyone's listening to this and they're like, oh man, who's that Hungarian guy? Or what did Cal Newport write? Or who's the near? My email address is public. It'll be in the show notes. Drop me an email. Steven, can you tell me more about the time boxing, whatever we talked about? I will drop you some blog or some link to a book or something. It will not be, the 17 paragraph story of my life because I don't have time to write that. You don't want to read it either, right? But I
Right.
do get back to everyone in 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. So Tim's offer is sincere. I'm here to help. I'm at a place in my life where I've been very lucky and I can do stuff like, hey, here's a link. If you're struggling with this, read this.
No, I appreciate it. And I know everybody else will appreciate it to a benefit as well. And one thing that I love about this show that we're doing together is practicality.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to leave people with
Yep.
something that they can implement today. So the Suka app is one of them. But my last question to you is, did we not talk about anything that you're like, you know what, Tim, I really wish you asked me this?
Oh, that's a very kind question. There is something that, like you said, is a free technique. You don't need anybody's app to do it, but it is incredibly powerful. And it is simply in the morning, before you dive in, you start getting deep into whatever you're doing. take a moment to make sure you're working on the right one or two or three things. And if you think there are more than three things you're going to do today, you're kidding yourself. You're not prioritizing, because you're not going to do seven things today. You're going to hopefully do one, two, or three well. So before you start, I don't care if you write on a piece of paper. A friend of mine has 3 index cards every day that she puts on her desk, and she just looks at those, goes one, two, and three. These are, if I'm not doing this, I have to ask myself why. Why am I not working on that right now? It's one of the things, like in Suka, we allow you to put 3 things at the top. That's all you can see. You can have a longer task list, but when you hit play, it hides everything but the top 3 to go focus on this. So that is the one thing that I would offer we didn't hit, which is know your 3 things, your one, two, or 3 things before you start in the morning. Because if you're sailing randomly, you're going to get nowhere. You'll be stuck in the middle of the ocean.
You're absolutely right. I know we've probably talked about this before, but I'm a big fan of the big top three. So, like I got 3 goals a year, three
Yeah,
things I do a quarter, 3 things I do a month, and 3 things I do a week, and 3 things I do a day to get to all of that. So, I love your technique,
I
man.
love
It's
that.
great.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your time and talking with everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me.